Welcome back, everybody. This video is going to be one of my favorite videos because we were building the chat screen. So when we click on any of the avatars or the chats in the app, it's going to go to the chat screen. We have a scroll view and we have a text bar at the bottom. The chats feature is actually one of the core reasons that I decided to make this course a chat app, because a chat feature is, I would say, one of the harder things to build as an engineer, because chats require a lot of moving parts. You need to obviously store the data for all of the messages. You need to determine whether it's you're sending the message, the other user is sending the message, and then you need to listen in real time for all these messages. So there's a lot of moving parts here, and even if you're not going to build a chat app, it has a lot of real world use case for code that would be applicable to other features. So in this video, we're going to go ahead and start just building the UI of this chat screen. There are SDKs and pre-made packages that have chat UI already built in, but we're going to build this from scratch. I think most of the time, at least for me, there's always something custom that I want to do in my chat screen that is just not supported by a pre-made package. And so learning how to do this from scratch, I think it's a good learning experience. You guys can tell me after this video, but it's going to take us a little bit of time. Let's get started, and we might have to roll into the next video as well. In SwiftUI, when you don't know where to start, it is generally a good idea to start with the smallest components. So what we're going to do is just build a basic plain scroll view, and then we're going to build out the UI for each chat message first. We don't have this screen in our app yet, so let's right-click our core section, create a new folder, and call it chat. Not to be confused with chats with a plural S. The chats screen, again, is this one with a whole bunch of chats on it. It is a little bit confusing in our code, so maybe we rename the chats view to chat list view or something, but I'll leave it for now. Let's right click, create a new file from template, and make it a SwiftUI view. I'll call it the chat view, and we'll go ahead and click create. Let's get the preview working, and I will close the navigator. All right, let's get started with just the basic layout of the screen. So for the first time in this course, we are actually not going to use a list. We're going to use just a regular scroll view here. Let's go ahead and add a scroll view, open the brackets, and in here for now, I'll just put a VStack, and then we'll put some text that says hi. And let's give the scroll view a background so that we can see it. We'll go color.red. And we know underneath the scroll view is going to be this text bar area here. So let's put that scroll view into a VStack. And we'll give it 0 spacing, so there's no spacing between the scroll view and the bottom section. The bottom section, I'm just going to put a rectangle and give it a frame with a height of maybe 50, just so that we hold a placeholder for where the text bar is going to go. So in this scroll view, we're going to have a bunch of chat messages. And if you remember, we already created the chat message model. And in here, we have an array of mocks. So we're just going to put this on the screen for now. Let's do an @state private var chat messages of type array of chat message model. Let's set it equal to chat message model.mocks. Let's do a for each, and let's loop on the chat messages. And then each message we'll just put here. Let's do maybe the message.content for now, otherwise blank string. We're going to update this in a second. Chat messages, let's see, they are not identifiable. Let's see if they are hashable. Let's jump in here. They are not hashable or identifiable, but they have an ID. Let's just make it identifiable so that we can use this initializer here. Cool. And they're on the screen. Let's give the VStack a frame with a max width of infinity so that it goes to the edges of the device. And we know that when we have these chats, this could be a very long chat history, right? You can keep chatting. There could be hundreds or thousands of messages in a chat. So we're not going to want to put them all in a VStack, but rather a lazy VStack. And let's give it some spacing of 24. So there's just a little bit of space between each of these. All right, now let's go ahead and build. Let's get rid of the red background. Let's go ahead and build out the custom UI for each of these cells. There's a little bit of logic that we need that's unique to this cell. So I'm going to make it its own reusable component. Go ahead and open up the navigator, and let's go to our component section. We have views here. And actually, let's clean this up a little bit. There's the chat row cell view and the chat row cell view builder. Let's go ahead and create a folder called the chat row cell view. And let's just put the cell view and the cell view builder into that folder, just so they're grouped together. I'm doing it now because we're going to actually build, again, 2 layers for these cells. So we're going to build the view, and then we're going to build a view builder that's going to determine whether it's the left or the right version. So let's go ahead and create a new folder here, and let's call this the ChatBubble view. Click enter. Let's right click, create a new file from template, a SwiftUI view, and I'll call this the ChatBubble view. So looking at the final result here, we can see we're going to create one ChatBubble view for both the gray left version and the accent color right version. And this one view will have a Boolean for whether or not we're using the gray version or the accent color version. So looking between these two, I can see a bunch of differences already. We're going to need a different background color, a different foreground color. This one's going to have an image and this one will not. And then we're going to have to line it to the left or to the right. All right, so firstly, let's go ahead and create a var. Let's call it text color of type color. Set it equal to primary for default. That will be the gray color here. And let's also do the background color. Let's make that of type color, and we'll set it equal to .gray. Let's also inject the text of type string. I will set this equal to some sample text that says this is sample text. On the screen, let's put the text. Let's make this a font of body, so it's just the default font. Let's give this a foreground style of text color. And let's give this a background color of background color. All right, the background color here looks like it's too dark of a gray. Let's change this actually to a color from UI color. And let's make it let's type gray. And we can see there's actually a whole bunch of grays in the UI color scheme. And then system grays, I think, just get lighter as you go up in number. So the 6th level shade is what we're going to go with, the System Gray 6. That should be a little bit lighter, a little bit easier to read. Great. Let's add some padding before the background. So we'll go padding here of horizontal, maybe 16. And we'll do padding of vertical. Let's do 10. After this, let's give it a corner radius of 6. So it's a little bit softer on the edges. We could do a corner radius of 30 or something. Make it at full circle, make it closer to the UI of some other apps, but I think 6, it's a bit of a unique UI, but it still looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and put an image on the left side here. So we're gonna have to put this into an H stack. I'm gonna cut it. Let's go H stack, open the brackets, paste it in. And then on the left, we're gonna put an image. So let's pass in a var image name of type string. We'll make it optional. String. We'll make it optional, set it equal to nil. And then here, let's put a Z stack. And let's say if let image name. We'll put an image loader view on the screen with the URL string from the image name. This is redundant, so we'll just delete that. Let's also do an else and just put a rectangle. If there is no image, we'll do a fill with the .secondary color so that it is gray. Lastly, on the Z stack, let's give this a fixed frame. 45 by 45, and let's also give this a clip shape to make it a circle. Looking good. On the H stack, let's give it some spacing between these two of 8. And if I go ahead and add a background to this, color.blue, we can see that currently there's a little bit of spacing above and below the text here. We can exaggerate that if I make this 100 by 100. We can see that the H stack is actually aligned to the center. So we want to change the alignment on this H stack to top so that it's aligned to the top. Let's put this back to 45s. And let's get rid of the background of color.blue. For the preview, let's go ahead and add a scroll view in our preview. And let's do a V stack with spacing, maybe 16. And let's just put a couple of these on the screen. All right, a couple things before we finish up this view. If you notice here, this circle, it actually starts a little bit below the top of this message here. So we just aligned them to the top, but now I moved this down a little bit. And I did that because if we have, let's say, text, and we have a lot of text here. So let's say this is a chat bubble with a lot of text that wraps to multiple lines, and it keeps ongoing. And we'll just copy, and then I'm going to paste it again. Just so we have a bigger example. I want to put it just the UI so that it moves down a little bit, so it's slightly more into the center of a larger bubble. So just a personal preference. So we're just going to go here and call an offset. So maybe the circle is about 45 by 45. Let's call it 40. Half of that is about 20. So let's move it down about 20 pixels. It's a little too much. Let's go maybe 14. Looks good. And then lastly, because we're doing this offset now, you can see here that this circle gets really close to this bubble. So you can see if we had a 0 spacing between these, this one starts to get cut off. So what I actually want to do is just add some padding here on the dot bottom. And let's also make that the same amount as our offset, so 14. Let's say here let offset of type CG float equals 14. So now we can reuse that code here, just so that we actually have the frame. Just to show that if we go background color dot blue, without this padding at the bottom, the object actually extends past the frame of it. So with that offset, we just fix that potential UI bug in the future. Let's put our spacing back to 16 here. And then let's try to create the accent color version as well. So I'm going to copy these two, and let's just paste two more. And for this one, let's go ahead and let's get the full initializer here. Option enter, triple click, control M. We don't need an image name. We don't need, the background color will be our accent color. Text color will be white. And then for the text, let's leave the default. And then let's actually just copy and paste and use this text here and put that for the text on this version. All right, on this VStack in the preview, we'll add some padding just to push it off the edges of the device, maybe 8. All right, so for the pink ones, obviously we do not want to have the profile image. So let's add a little Boolean here, var, let's say show image, and let's put it right next to the image name of type bool equals false. Actually, we'll set it by default, we'll set it equal to true. And then here, let's just say, let's only use this ZStack if show image, then we put this ZStack on the frame. And because we're only going to have this offset if we're showing the image, let's also make this bottom padding only if show image offset, otherwise 0. And last but not least, let's go ahead to our views at the bottom, and we'll set show image equal to false. A couple of you are probably going to ask why we're doing both show image and image name. Why couldn't we just do an if let on the image name? And if there was no image name, we just don't render it. You could imagine that maybe we are chatting with somebody who actually just doesn't have an image, but it's still this user on the left. I don't want some of these on the left to not have an image, even if the user doesn't have one. Because if that was the case, then the text bubble here would not line up with this one if there was no image on the top one. Anyway, we have our basic chat bubbles here. Let's go ahead and create another layer on top of this. And the next layer is going to determine whether or not it's going to be pushed to the left or pushed to the right. I'm doing this just purely, not because we need to. We could put all the logic in here, but it's just going to be a little bit easier for me to manage by creating first the base layer and then creating an implementation layer on top of it. This implementation layer is not going to have any special data loading, but it is going to be specific to putting this bubble on our chat screen. So you could imagine that we use this chat bubble on another screen. Maybe we put it on the settings screen. Maybe we just have, for some reason, we're using this UI. So here, because it's not specifically formatted, we could theoretically use this somewhere else. Just a personal preference. Let's go ahead and right click the navigator, create a new file from template. Let's call this one the chat bubble view builder. And let's click create. Then in here, let's go ahead and customize our chat bubbles. So here, now that we're working with the implementation of this chat, I'm okay with using some specific data models. Each chat bubble is going to have a chat message. So we'll say var chat message or we can just call this message of type chat message model. Let's set it equal to mock for now. Secondly, we need to determine if we're going to use the left or the right version. Let's create a Boolean here called isCurrentUser of type bool and set it equal to false. So the current user messages are on the right, and then the avatars are going to be on the left, just like any other chat app. And let's start building out our view. So I'm just going to create here a Z-stack. Let's put a ChatBubble view on the screen, and let's triple click Control M. The message, of course, is going to be, the text is going to be the message dot content, and we'll do otherwise blank string. There should always be content in these chat messages. The text color, let's say if is current user, we'll make the text color white, otherwise we'll make it .primary. And then for background color, we're going to do similar is current user. Let's do the accent color. Otherwise, let's do our color UI color dot gray system gray 6. Show image is going to be just if it is not the current user, and then image name we need to pass in. So the chat message model just has data on the chat message. It does not have data on the actual avatar that we're chatting with. Let's pass in here avatar, or we'll just call it image name for any potential image that we want to inject, because maybe it's not the avatar image name in some other version of the app. Let's go ahead and pass in the image name here. I'm going to create a scroll view on this preview as well. Let's create a V-stack, and let's put 3 of these. On the second one, I'm going to say is current user equals to true. Great. Let's give the V-stack some spacing, maybe 24. I think that's what we're going to use in the final version. And let's go ahead and push these to the left or to the right. So on the, I guess we don't really need a Z-stack here, so let's just delete that. So on the background here, I have color.orange. Let's just see the background. Let's give this a frame with a max width of infinity. And let's give this alignment. And we'll say if is current user, let's align it to the trailing edge, otherwise leading. Push it to each side. Let's put some padding on the V-stack of 12 just so it looks more realistic. And let's remove the background color. The last thing we're going to do here is something that you probably wouldn't figure out until you actually played around with your app for a while. But I've obviously already built this and ran into all the bugs and edge cases that we're going to run into. But right now we just have this simple text. Hello, how are you? On this third one, let's give it a custom chat message model. I will option enter and then triple click and Control M. So for the ID, I don't care what the ID is. Let's do a random string. Same with the chat ID and the author ID. But for the scene by IDs, we'll put nil. For the date created, we'll put now. But the content is where I want to actually put some content. So let's put, this is some longer content that goes on to multiple lines and keeps on going to another line. And then let's just copy that and do one more, but this time we'll add an is current user of true. So it's obviously rendering correctly, but a better chat UI is to limit the length of these so that it doesn't go all the way to the edge of the device. If you notice in your messages app, each chat bubble does not extend all the way to the other side. It's like this, the left side is reserved for the other person and the right side is reserved for you. So each of these chats need to be basically limited so that it doesn't go all the way to the other side. We want to just make sure that all your chats stay on the right and their chats stay on the left. And we're going to do that really simply by just adding some padding. So let's add padding of .leading. So the leading is going to come in on the left side here. So these chats where it is the current user, we just want to add a bunch of padding on the left edge. So we'll say here, if is current user, let's do 75 on the left, otherwise 0. So we should now push this from the left edge. Again, this is what it looked like, and now this is the updated version. And then we're just going to do the exact opposite for trailing, and we'll do is current user 0, otherwise 75. So it just pushes each person onto their side. And we could play around with this, like maybe we could do 90 or something like that if we want shorter lines. But somewhere around 70, 80, 90 is pretty good. And just like that, we have our ChatBubble view builder. Looking great. Let's wrap up this video by just implementing this in our actual chat view. Let's open up the chat view, and then instead of this text here, let's go ahead and put our chat view builder, and we'll open up the parentheses, and we'll do Option Enter, and we'll triple click Control M. For the message, we'll just pass that in. For is current user, let's just paste false for a second. And then for image name, let's also just put nil for now. All right, when we get to the chat screen, we're going to load up the avatar that we are chatting with. So the user is going to click on an avatar somewhere, maybe on the home screen. They click on an avatar, alpha, and then we're going to load up the alpha avatar here. So at the top, let's put an @state private var. Let's call this avatar of type avatar model. We'll make it optional in case we don't have it. And we'll just set it equal to mock for now. And so the image name should be the avatar.profile image name. But obviously, if it's the current user, we want the image name to be nil. So we need to figure out if it's the current user first. Let's also create a state for the current user of type user model. Set it equal to a mock as well. And then in here, let's say let is current user, and we'll set it equal to if the message.author ID is equal to the current user.user ID. So is current user, and then we'll say is current user nil, otherwise avatar profile image name. Now we have our chats on the screen. Let's give the whole lazy VStack padding of maybe 8 so that it pushes off the edges. And let's go ahead and add the nav bar at the top here. So by the time we get here, we'll already be inside a navigation stack. And then on the whole VStack, we'll just add a nav title. And let's use the avatar.name. Otherwise, maybe a blank string. Or otherwise, let's just put chat. That's fine. And then let's go ahead and set the toolbar display mode to inline so that it's not the large title, but it's the inline one, just like that. And this is looking great. I think that's all for this video. We did a lot of work here. We made some custom cells, and this is pretty reusable. For basically any chat, this is basically the approach that I would take. You first make the cell, then you make an implementation for the cell. So firstly, our ChatBubble view was totally using only primitive types. We can use this UI anywhere in our application. It doesn't have to be the chat screen. Then we made an implementation of that ChatBubble view using the ChatBubble view builder. And this is going to be specific for putting that cell on this screen. And this is what it looks like in the preview. These SwiftUI previews, I cannot stress enough how getting the SwiftUI previews right is half the battle in SwiftUI. Because getting these right, if I come back to this 6 months from now, I'll know exactly how to implement this by just looking at the previews. And I won't even have to read the rest of my code. I'll just go through the previews and I'll see exactly what is working. I see a lot of SwiftUI developers might only keep one preview here. And then you forget about all the other implementations, and it takes you a while to figure out all the other versions of this cell. But really just getting all the previews built takes a couple extra seconds the first time, but then it really gets you moving faster and the whole team moving faster in the long run. So we made the cell, then we made an implementation, then we just threw it on our chat screen for now. And I think in the next video, we're going to do a bunch more work to finish up the chat screen. Let's go ahead and finish this video with Option Command C. Let's make this a feature, and we will call this the ChatBubble view. Let's stage it, let's commit it, and then let's push it up to GitHub. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.